Good morning, students. How are you all? I hope you are all fine and doing your work. So, last time we began with the chapter Deep Water, written by William Douglas, and it was an autobiographical chapter where he shared his fear of water and how he overcame it. He was in a YMCA pool and he was thrown into the pool by a big boy, and it was 9 feet deep, and he had not practiced it by that time, so he was unable to come out of it, and he tried but a number of times, but when he was drowning for the third time, he uh, relaxed and he gave up all his efforts, and he felt that he was feeling sleepy and going into his mother's arm, and ultimately he became unconscious and he was drifted away towards death. Then I asked you to answer all these questions. Think as you read that what is the misadventure that William Douglas speaks about. We all know that once he went to the pool when no one else was there, and a boy he picked him, tossed him into the deep water, and he was frightened, thinking he might drown in the water. So this was the misadventure he experienced. Then second one says, what were the series of emotions and fears that Douglas experienced when he was thrown into the pool? What plans did he make to come to the surface? So initially he was frightened because 9 feet depth seemed 90 to him. His lungs were ready to burst. He felt as if his legs paralyzed and rigid. So he made a strategy that he will make a big jump as soon as his feet touch the bottom and come to surface, and he will lie flat on it and paddle to the edge of the pool, and this way he made this effort several times but failed. How did this experience affect him? Because of this experience, he became weak and trembling. He could not eat that night. There was a haunting fear in his heart, and as a result, he never went back to the pool. He feared water and avoided it whenever he could. So, this is we are going to read today that how he felt after going through this treacherous experience. So let us start with the chapter. The next I remember, I was lying on my stomach beside the pool, vomiting. The chap that threw me in was saying, but I was only fooling. Someone said, the kid nearly died. Be all right now. Let's carry him to the locker room. So, when William gained consciousness, last we read that he crossed to oblivion and the curtain of life fell, means he became unconscious and he was moving towards death. Now, the next thing he remembers, he says that he was lying on his stomach when he gained consciousness and beside the pool and was vomiting. And the boy who threw him in, he was saying that he was only fooling. Someone said that the boy who pushed him into the pool, he was just fooling him, but the other person, he scolded him and said that the kid nearly died. And then the boy replied that, as I said, fooling him. Now the person, he asked the boy to carry William to the locker room. Several hours later, I walked home. I was weak and trembling. So this was the after effects of the experience. And he says when he walked home after many hours, he felt weak and trembling, means shivered. I shook and cried when I lay on my bed. So he said he kept on crying as he lay on the bed. I couldn't eat that night. For days, a haunting fear was in my heart. So, these were all the effects of this experience. He says that he felt weak and shivered, he was unable to eat food that night, and the fear kept on haunting him for many days. The slightest exertion means tiredness, upset me, making me wobbly. Wobbly means weak in the knees and sick to my stomach. Sick to my stomach means he felt like vomiting. So he says that even the slightest work made him feel that his knees were unable to bear his weight and he would feel like vomiting. I never went back to the pool. I feared water. I avoided it whenever I could. So, after this experience, William did not go to the swimming pool as he feared the water. He remained away from it. A few years later, when I came to know the water of the Cascades, water of the Cascade, I wanted to get into them. Cascade means waterfall. So he says that after some years he came to know of a waterfall and wanted to go in it. And whenever I did, whether I was wading means walk through water. The Titan is river. Wading, Titan is river, or bumping river. Bumping river means here bouncing river, or bathing in warm lakes of goat rocks. The terror that had seized me in the pool would come back. It would take possession of me completely. My legs would become paralyzed. Icy horror would grab my heart. So he says that after some years, when he came to know about waterfall and wanted to go in it, whenever he went for swimming in different rivers like Titan, Bumping River, warm lakes of the Goat Rocks, the fear of water returned. He says the terror that had seized me in the pool would come back, means the fear which he experienced at the YMCA pool, it would come back to him and it would take possession, control of him, complete control of him. It would grab him completely, and what happens that his legs they become paralyzed. The fear disables his limbs and grabs his heart. This handicap stayed with me as the years rolled by. This handicap means the fear of water. It remained with William as he grew up. In canoes on main lakes, on fishing for landlocked salmon. So canoes means small boats. Mine lakes, mine is a river, and fishing for landlocked salmon. Landlocked means surrounded by land, and salmon, you know, it's a fish. Then bass fishing in New Hampshire. Bass fishing in New Hampshire. Then trout fishing on the Deschutes, Metolius in Oregon, fishing for salmon on Columbia, at Bumping Lake in the Cascades. Wherever I went, the haunting fear of the water followed me. It ruined means destroyed my fishing trips, deprived me of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. So these lines they are important. Why they are important? Because a question is asked that uh, how his water adventure or what sports he was unable to uh, play due to this fear. So he says that his fishing trips were ruined and he was deprived of the joy of canoeing, boating, and swimming. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear. So he says that he tried to overcome this fear. He tried to control this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. But he was unable to get rid of it. Finally, one October, so in the month of October, he decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. So in the month of October, he hired an instructor to teach him swimming. I went to pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around me. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. It held on to the end of the rope and we went back and forth across the pool, hour after hour, day after day, week after week. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic means little fear, it would seize him, it would grab him. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and I went under, some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. Slack means to reduce. So he is describing about his learning process, and the instructor he would put a belt around William's waist. The belt was attached to a thick rope. The rope went through an overhead pulley and was held by the instructor. It ensured that in case William drowned, the instructor would pull him out. So the William, he swam across the length of the pool for several weeks. Whenever the instructor loosened the rope, he went down into the water and the fear would return. It would immobilize his legs. It was after 3 months of practice that William got comfortable, that the tension began to slack, the tension, the stress, it began to reduce. Then he taught me to put my face under water and exhale, and to raise my nose and inhale. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic and seized me when my head went under water. So, when he became comfortable after 3 months of practice, instructor taught him to breathe in the water. He taught him to put his face under the water and exhale his breath. He also taught to raise his nose out of the water and inhale. William practiced this several times and gradually he got rid of the panic that would grab him when he put his head under the water. Next, he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. For weeks, I did just that. At first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed, and finally, I could command them, I could order them. So, now in the third phase of the learning process, instructor taught William to kick the water surface with his legs. He did this for many weeks, and initially his legs did not move. Gradually, they refused to work, as he says, but they relaxed, and finally William was able to order them to kick in the desired way. Thus, piece by piece means step by step, he built a swimmer. So finally, the instructor he made swimmer out of William in phases. And when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. So when William had perfected each phase, each technique of swimming, he compiled them, he integrated them, and in the month of April, he said, "Now you can swim." So, in the month of April, instructor told William that now he could swim. He is a trained swimmer. Dive off, swim the length of the pool, crawl, stroke. He asked him to dive into the pool and swim the length of the pool in a particular style called the crawl stroke. I did. The instructor was finished. Mark this line. This is very important. It comes for explanation also. So he says that I did means William, he swam uh, according to the instructions of the instructor, and the instructor was finished means the classes they came to an end, and finally he was a swimmer, a very good swimmer. But still he says that I was not finished means from instructor's side, he instructor had taught him the different techniques of swimming. So from his side the lesson was complete, but William says that he was not finished. For example, the way I will be finishing this chapter with you, so from my side the chapter will finish, but some of you will feel that no, I have not understood the chapter properly. I have to revise it. I have to go through it again and again. I have to practice it. So that is what William is also saying, that from his side he was not finished. I still wondered if I would be terror stricken. Terror stricken means full of fear when I was alone in the pool. So he says that he had not overcome the fear yet and wondered if the terror would grab him when he would be alone in the water. I tried it. I swam the length up and down. Tiny vestiges. Vestiges means traces of the old terror would return, but now I would frown. Now he would frown and say to that terror, trying to scare me, "Ah, well, here's to you. Look," and off I would go for another length of the pool. So, whenever he tried to swim alone in the pool, the terror returned in small phases. But now, as he knew how to swim, he faced the terror with confidence and he swam another length of the pool. This went on until July. So, when did he start? In the month of April, his instructor told him that now you can swim and you can dive and you can swim in a particular style called crawl stroke. And William, his classes they came to an end, but he himself was not finished because the tiny vestiges or the small traces of fear it would return when he used to be alone in the pool, and this went on until July. So from April, May, June, and July, and he says that I was still not satisfied. I was not sure that all the terror had left, so I went forth in New Hampshire, dived off at a Triggs Island, swam into 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. I swam the crawl, the breaststroke, the side stroke, and the backstroke. Only once did the terror return when I was in the middle of the lake. But I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. So he says that when he swam like this till the month of July, but he was not satisfied. He wanted to be sure that all of the fear had left him. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire, dived into it from Triggs Island, and swam for 2 miles up to Stamp Act Island. He swam in different styles: crawl, breaststroke, side stroke, and backstroke. The terror returned only once when he was in the middle of the lake. Then he says that I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. So when he put his head under water, he saw water all around, and the fear, it returned. The old sensation returned in miniature. Miniature means small size. Old sensation means the old terror. It returned to him in small size, and he says that I laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" It fled, and I swam on. So this time, William laughed at the terror and said to it that it could not harm him. He saw that the terror vanished and he resumed swimming.